I'm almost 50, strong, clear, energized. Training hard, living clean, fully alive. But it didn't start here. 30 years ago, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and I felt hopeless. But I chose a different path. No meds, just science, discipline, and results. Now I'm symptom-free and asking the tough questions that move us all forward. This is Hope and Health. Let's go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Hope and Health. Today, I'm with Jake Smith, who's an incredible guy who's going to share his testimony, how he's controlling his multiple sclerosis with science-based nutritional strategies. Jake, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Jake, your story is incredibly inspiring to me. Let's start right at the beginning with your diagnosis.
Yeah, so April 1st, April Fool's Day, I think it was 2021, I was diagnosed with MS. I was 25 at the time.
Wow.
It was just a phone call. And I was just like, hey, yeah, it's right. You have MS.
Okay, now before that diagnosis, okay, what kind of lifestyle were you living? And then what were the symptoms that made you think, I got to go to the doctor?
So like a quote unquote fun one? No, it was an unhealthy lifestyle. It was kind of no control, no care for what I put into my body, food wise. Just being a young kid, partying for the first time, exploring, just trying to live without a care. Unfortunately, it caught up quick.
Now, what would a typical day look like? Like, what would you be eating? What would you be consuming? How are you treating your body?
I never did breakfast. I wouldn't eat almost all day. And then say after school or after work, go out, get dinner, maybe get a few beers depending on which day it was. And then chips, snacks, chocolate bars before bed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Smoking?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Smoking too.
Really? So it was living pretty hard.
Yeah, living hard.
What about exercise? Were you an active guy at that time?
I was nimble. I could still move for being 255 pounds. I was still nimble.
Wow.
But no regiment, no exercise. Whenever there was a sport around, frisbee or someone was playing, sure, no problem. But other than that, no, nothing.
Okay, so then what happened? What started this whole journey for you?
The symptoms for sure. They came on quick and heavy. The first time, it was the first time I ever had a migraine. So that was a completely new experience. I didn't know what that was like. It was like an ice pick just being stuck in my eye. And I took some migraine medication that was in the cupboard. Mm-hmm. And then I woke up and half my face was numb. I was like, oh, something's wrong. I had no feeling in my nose and my lips or my scalp. And then I noticed the coordination in my right arm was off. Or I just couldn't, even using the mouse for work. I was kind of using my whole shoulder, pushing through it. And then I went and seen the hospital like 3 or 4 times actually. And they kept, they CT'd my head twice, like 8 years of radiation per CT. So I'm still not happy about that. And then eventually one of the doctors asked me like, oh, hey, do you have anyone in your family with MS? I was like, oh, actually my cousin has MS. And like right away, the first thing he said, he's like, oh, that's not good. I was like, oh, what do you mean? He's like, so I'll be right back. And then it kind of just rolled from there. They got the neurologist down, I think on the 4th visit. Mm-hmm. They're like, oh, you're in luck. He's in the building. So, and then he did his tests and said, oh, it might be MS, but don't cry. And I was like, okay, I won't. Mm-hmm. And then he just was like, oh, we'll schedule the MRI and get it figured out. And then here we are.
So for you, what was it like? I mean, did you know much about multiple sclerosis at the time? And your cousin had it, so you must have had some sort of experience.
Yeah, I did know about it. My dad knew a lot more about it because of my cousin. He was more involved, like talked to her mom and that. So we knew that it was a debilitating disease, but I didn't know to what extent it could be. When you talk about like the really bad things that can happen and the two types, that was all news, and that was all like made it a lot more scary.
So at the time, like, what emotions were going through you? Were you fearing the worst? Did you not care too much about it? I mean, well, where were you at?
I was scared. I was terrified. I'm a worrywart generally, anyways. So when I got the diagnosis, it was an instant switch. It was an instant life-altering event for me. Pretty quickly, and getting that phone call like alone on the edge of my bed where he's like, hey, you have MS. I'm going to send you these 4 drugs, research them, and tell me which one you want to take, and then pretty much hung up the phone.
Okay, so the neurologist called you and told you that there were 4 different options and for you to do the research?
Yeah.
So what was that like?
Oh, it was overwhelming. So I'm thinking, and then I'm asking him like, does it help? And they put me in touch with what they call like an MS nurse, but in reality, like they're a part of basically just a program to get you on the drugs. And when I would ask, like, hey, is this going to help me? Like, what changes am I going to see other than these immediate side effects? What like positives am I going to see? Mm-hmm. And all she said was, it's like RRSP. You put in now for later.
Got it.
I was like, I don't believe you.
Right.
Because what's later? What does later look like? How much later? So yeah, thankfully Casey found you guys.
Okay, so who's Casey? And then what started to happen next in your family? Did your dad contact you? What were those next steps where you had to start taking control?
It was pretty immediate. As we were researching the drugs, Casey's my fiance. She delved into them, and we sent out a message to our family group chat, and we said, "Hey, I'm told to research these 4. Can you all take a look at these and tell me what you think? And then, whatever's highest voted, we'll go with that one."
So did anybody in your family have the medical background or the research background to be able to do the research on these drugs?
No, absolutely not. And it's pamphlets and websites that come from these drug companies. And then when we looked outside of that, it was just basically testimonials, like on Reddit or some social media site where it was, this drug I had this reaction, but then this drug I didn't. And it was sort of, there was no proof. It was just, this might be better for side effects, or this might be better for side effects. It was nothing like this this actually helped me. We didn't see that anywhere. And then that's where I'm like red flags are going up all over the place, for me at least.
Well, and that can be really overwhelming if you don't have a background in researching pharmaceuticals and with multiple sclerosis, really scary diagnosis. You're trying to find the best option. You're trying to find the absolute best thing to do. What conclusion did you come to?
The first thought, just out of pure fear, was to get on one of the drugs, which I did, while also following your program to a T.
Okay, so hold on. Let's stop. Let's back it up. How did you get to find out about MS Hope? What was the journey to find something different other than the drugs that you were given as your only option at that time?
Social media, actually, surprisingly. So Casey, my fiance, she was searching everywhere just to see like what she could find out. She was hooked. She was like a dog with a bone, and she came across you guys, thankfully, and she told me all about it. She's like, I think this is like a good shot, and she was like, well, we can get on this. We can do it together, and I think we started the very next day.
Mm-hmm. So let's back this up again. So your fiance, she's doing some research. She comes across mshope.com. Now, she obviously felt that there was something there. Now, for you, when you checked it, what gave you the confidence that you wanted to even explore something different than pharmaceuticals?
The lack of side effects was the big one. Because I was thinking, like, if I can not take any drugs and not have any side effects and, take control of it, then that would be the best option. Because like that's one thing with the disease is the amount of fear and uncertainty is what's really crushing. When you get diagnosed, like you're thinking like, oh, well, what am I going to be like next week? What am I going to be like next month, next year? When you think about planning something like, oh, we're going to get married 5 years. Well, what am I going to look like at the altar? And so that was the biggest part, was like, how can I actually put this in my own hands to fight, to where when I did have those thoughts, I could immediately combat them with, well, if it's within my power, I'm going to be standing there on my own 2 feet. So that was really like the driving factor for me.
At this time, you're full of fear. You want to take control. When you checked out mshope.com, what about it made you think, I can start taking control of my disease?
One of the big factors was all the data, all the proof, everything behind it. And something that I wasn't able to see before. Like researching the drugs and seeing other people's testimonials about those drugs and about these diseases. It was the only place where I actually found like proof. This is working for somebody. This is a way, I want to say a way out, but a way to a better life. So that was one of the biggest things, was just there was some proof in the pudding, something that solid and concrete.
Okay, but now this way to a better life, I mean, if we think about the way you were living, so you're smoking, drinking, you're eating what you want one time a day, you're not exercising. I mean, the roadmap that we share on mshope.com, it's radically different from how you're living.
Absolutely.
So what is that like to see, like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to have to make radical change?
It was a big decision, and it was a big change. The fear was a big motivator. Like to go from not only not caring, but not having any realization of these things are actually impacting my body, just going like, oh, it's this way. Oh, it's this way. Sort of always brushing things off. I think the actually taking accountability and responsibility was the biggest change when it came to those things. Thankfully, I had quit smoking about a year before the diagnosis, so I didn't have to deal with all of that all at once. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you think of the way that I was living, like the smoking and the drinking, it was all to combat feelings. If you really think about it, that's what I was doing. Quick hits of little hits of dopamine, cigarettes, beer, bad food, partying, friends, that sort of thing. It's a typical, I don't want to say typical, like a young adult, but you're exploring the world. But again, I don't want to make excuses. That was the biggest, was taking accountability, actually doing something about it.
Okay, so it's day one. What does day one look like when you're about to make this kind of change?
Yeah, day one. Day one was a different day. It started off doing smoothies in the morning, day one, because I was never a big morning eater. I didn't really want to change that too much. So started with smoothie off day one, start meal prepping just so I have lunches ready. That was the other thing. Like the other lifestyle is you're not prepping and planning and cooking and cleaning. There's a whole nother realm that comes to this lifestyle. A lot more work even. So day one was just getting it sorted, getting the groceries, getting what we wanted to do together. And then started working out. Started working out day one, started with light weights. And so funny enough, I couldn't research the drugs, and I couldn't read MS Hope fully in depth because it was too scary. It was too much stress. It would throw me through a loop. So I let that be with Casey. So we hadn't got to the part where it was about the legumes. So the first week I was still having a tablespoon of peanut butter at night, which now I think back, I'm like, well, that probably helped get me off to a good start, because it really kept me sane, looking forward to it for the first week. But again, that was another thing where I was like, well, it's working. My face isn't numb, but my toes were still numb. I had gotten coordination back in my arm, and the numbness in my face had gone down. but my toes were still numb. And then I stopped doing the peanut butter at night, and about 4 or 5 days later, it was just completely, all the symptoms were completely gone.
Okay, so let's talk about that transformation. You've changed the way you're eating. You're now exercising. I mean, massive lifestyle change. And I can tell you, I know exactly what you're talking about when it comes to the additional work. I don't think people understand. I mean, unless you are on a very specific diet and exercise regime, I do not think people understand the number of hours put into it.
Oh yeah, all the behind the scenes.
Yeah.
The amount of, you go from not cooking to cooking.
Oh,
Well, then cooking, you get dishes.
yeah.
It's now you're stocking your fridge, making sure you have ingredients, making sure you have the right ingredients.
Oh, I know. And it's like, then there's consequences at work too. I mean, the people I've worked with over the years, I'm sure, like, why does Embry never come for lunch?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Right? Why do we never see him? Well, he's either exercising or he's making his own food. The amount of work is significant.
Yeah.
And it's not till I actually got older and my long journey into the disease that I really realized the consequences of that.
The shifting in conversation too is a big one, where it's like, can you eat that?
Mm-hmm.
Can you eat, like, it changes a lot of things where you're not so getting food, the smallest thing becomes a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh well, can Jake eat there?
Right.
Oh, is Jake gonna be able to come? Can you eat that? What can you eat?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
can you just stop talking about what I can eat?
Yeah.
Please, I'll worry about it.
So let's talk about the transformation. I mean, was there a body transformation? Were you losing weight? And then also at the same time, let's talk about the symptoms. What happened to the dramatic, objective neurological symptoms you were having?
The transformation was insane. It was a hard time too, because the first month I went really hard. I dropped a ton of weight. So when we first started, I was about 230. I wasn't my heaviest. I wasn't my lightest. But yeah, so we started at 230 and it came off so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
The weight came off so quickly. I think after the first month, I was 180, 175. And at the same time, I hadn't been looking in the mirror too much. I was maybe experiencing some depression, realizing a whole new way of life. It's earth shattering,
Mm-hmm.
So, after about a month, 2 months, I grew out a beard, all this stuff. And I woke up one day, I really looked in the mirror and I didn't recognize myself, which was the most strange thing to say. And it's hard to convey, because you think like, oh, you look at yourself in the mirror every day, you see yourself, and it's like, well, I was kind of just head down, next, don't think about MS. What's the next thing? Don't think about MS. What's the next thing? Oh, don't be stressed about being stressed, because then you'll have symptoms. Just keep going. Like, so when I say like I wasn't looking in the mirror, I was looking in the mirror, but I wasn't paying attention. I was, just trying to move forward and sort of bury that fear, the fear of the unknown sort of thing. So that was the first month was crazy. It took a long time for me to go like, this is what I look like. It was a transformation, that's for sure. Yeah.
And what about the neurological symptoms you were experiencing?
Yeah, that was a part that I was pretty happy about. The lack of coordination went away pretty quickly. And then the numbness, it faded out slowly but surely. So like, it was really noticeable. And then I hopped on the program, and after the first week, like my toes had stopped going numb. Like I said, after the peanut butter, the coordination was completely fine. Like I wasn't feeling that sensation anymore. And then the numbness in my face went away right away, and then my scalp faded out slowly over time, and then eventually there was no symptoms. And that's the funny thing too, is it's made my life a lot better, and it's made my relationships a lot better. I can't tell you how close like Casey and I have grown ever since like taking this seriously, ever since the diagnosis. It will better your life. Because you start putting energy into good things. That's the other thing, I haven't seen anyone really talk about, is when you start moving towards being healthier and you're trying to be mindful. Now, be it mindfulness is a whole nother task in itself. I'm still battling with being mindful, but working towards these things, you're going to find that, your relationships grow, your work life grows. Like, you're able to take on things that you never thought you would before, because, if you're living hard day to day, when you're brought an obstacle, it just makes it that much easier to go like, well, I did this. Why don't I just leap over this one too? So for me, I don't know, as much as like inspire people like, hey, you have to stick to this and do this the rest of your life. But like, if you haven't given it a shot, give it a shot. And if you mess up, don't throw it all away. It's okay. Like, it's okay to mess up. It's okay to be human. Move forward. Give yourself the grace to be able to move forward, and work on yourself. I think it's just made life in general just so much more positive.
Before your diagnosis, can you remind us what your symptoms were?
Yeah, absolutely. So my scalp was numb completely, from the forehead back to the crown of my head, and then my whole forehead was numb, and then the right side of my face was numb, and my nose, my lips. I think had some feeling here on the left side of my face. I had lack of coordination in my right arm, and then my toes. My toes were numb. Not my entire feet, but my toes.
And also, too, did they show you an MRI to show you how many lesions you had, things like that?
Yeah. So I had the MRI and the lumbar puncture.
Right. And
the lumbar puncture came back positive, and then the MRI had 5 to 10 lesions across my brain.
So you're 25 years old, you're 230 pounds. You decide to take an incredibly radical approach for the life you're living, change your lifestyle entirely. Your symptoms have gone away. You've got a whole brand new program. How many months in are we? And what made you make the decision, I'm going to keep going?
So we had started I was diagnosed April 1st, and we had started the program by May 1st. We went all through the summer, and by the end of August, beginning of September is when I came off the drugs that I had started. I did not like the side effects, and I didn't need them anymore. Basically, I didn't need the extra security blanket. If that was really the real reason that I was on them. And that was the reason that I had started the program too, was, fear, how taking control again, like I said. So, at the end of August, I came off the medication, and I decided I was going to stick with it. And I think a bit of it was ego, because I was like, I'm really liking the way I looked.
Got it.
I really liked the way I was feeling. And then now it's just become part of life.
Wow. So you just dug in, you made that decision right then, I'm going with this.
Yeah. And that was like, once I told the neurologist, that was kind of me just going all in on the program.
So what did your neurologist say when you shared this with him?
He said there is some evidence that there was exercise was good for MS. And I was like, okay, well, that's good. I'm glad we can agree on that. That was sort of the most positivity I got out of the whole thing. There wasn't much. I mean, there really wasn't much. His office assistant said, okay. I told him I didn't want to do the next MRI. I'll do it the year after. And then I never reached out again, and they never reached out again. And that's sort of where I left it.
Okay, so let me understand this. You walk into the neurologist's office, I guess 4 or 6 months later. You've lost 50 pounds, maybe a bit more than that.
Yeah.
Your symptoms are gone, and you don't have a discussion about your new health outcomes and what you're doing?
It's funny enough, I brought him printouts of all the research on the MS Hope website. And I said, look, this is the program that I'm doing. I would like you to support me in doing this. I would like to get another MRI in another year just to see where the base was, because I had done one just previously, so that was the follow up to it. That's why I was in his office, and all the lesions were gone except for maybe 2, and they're fading. And he said, "Oh wow, look great, this is fading. This is good." I'm like, "Yeah, I started this program, and then I didn't get any agreement. He didn't seem too happy that I didn't want to take the medication. It was kind of awkward, and then I just left the printouts in the office and went on my way."
Now, were you confused by that? I mean, at the time, what was your response?
I wasn't confused. I knew. I know how the system works, how the money flows, how kickbacks are done. So it was kind of everything I expected. It was the response that I expected.
Now, how did you find out about that? Because, it's not easy for patients to understand that the amount of money backing a disease like MS is significant, and that neurologists, not all of them, but, some, maybe even many, take kickbacks from pharmaceutical companies. This isn't public knowledge, especially in Canada, where you can't get that information of how much your neurologist is getting. In the US, you can get that information, not in this country. So how did you discover that these conflicts of interest within the system?
I think it was just documentaries. Like, I was a big documentary guy before. Your documentary helped, and just reading online. Just sort of what to expect. When I saw other people who said that they had told their neurologist the same thing, it was kind of, 2 and 2, put 2 and 2 together. And money makes the world go round. So it's a business at the end of the day.
So what about now? Do you look back? Does it all make sense to you now with what happened?
Oh yeah. There's no part of me that feels that I've ever took a misstep, or that I'm wrong, or this is the wrong direction. It was more of like, it was more of a feeling that I had peeled back the curtain, and I've seen what you didn't want me to see, and I refuse to be tricked, is more of how I feel about the whole thing.
Got it. So now, how many years in are you? What does a typical day look like for you now? And what are the kind of things you're doing mentally to prepare for keeping this going and going for the distance?
Well, a typical day outside of work is waking up with my daughter. That's a big one. Planning the day with her. Getting everything ready. And following the path. I mean, it's just become sort of like rudimentary, like sort of wake up, do the smoothie, pack the vitamins, and then go on with your day, stop, eat lunch. Being more regimented that way is a huge change. But the exercising, finding time to exercise. So when we first started, it was really easy. When you have less life responsibilities, but since having a daughter, it's a lot more challenging.
Yeah,
to where you go like, okay, when can I squeeze this in?
You got to get the baby jogger, man.
Yeah, we did. Yeah,
it's the only way I was able to do it.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good tip.
I think it may have had long-term effects on my back because pushing that thing can be a bit rough, but
yeah,
you can do it.
Yeah, we got.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, we got the jogger. And that was the first thing I had noticed, is like, oh, my back. And we live around all hills too. So like when I would run up it, push it forward, sprint up to it, push it forward. So yeah, that's a big one. But
let's talk about, making dreams come true in life. I think when people are diagnosed with illness, it can be a point where they think all the things they wanted in life can't happen. You were 25 years old at the time. You had a fiance. Now you're married. You have a daughter. I mean, can you talk about that? Can you talk about the things in life you wanted to do? You were able to achieve them, and what that's like.
Yeah, it was a good push to start living life, to start moving forward and sort of taking things more seriously. Realizing that I'm not immortal. That was a big eye opener. So actually wanting to do these things, and the worrying about where I would be at the time of those things was also a big pusher for getting started on it earlier was always better. And then it was just another thing where, well, are you going to let it hold you back? Like, it's already taking so much. It's already taking so much of your mental capacity. It's a constant question in the back of your head. If you feel a cold breeze or like a sensation on your arm where you go like, oh, did I mess up? Is this what is that MS? Is that one of the symptoms? So it already holds like such a big placeholder in your mind. So I kind of wanted to shift that to where it was more of like a driving agent of like, why not? Why am I not going to do these things? I'm not going to let this hold me back. I'm not going to let it like define me, as some people would say, I think that was making it into a more of a driving factor, using the fear as a motivator, using it against itself.
Interesting. Fear as a motivator. That is something in my journey that I have been talking about. So many people have told me, live without fear, live without fear. I'm like, well, I can't. Tried. It's not going to happen. I live with it. Like you said, a weird wind goes by. I sleep on my arm. I wake up. I worry that it's numb. I'm 30 years in and it hasn't gone away. But I've been able to figure out how to use that fear to push me. How have you done it?
In my mind, like it was always there. And at first it was like, it was a way to cope with the fear at first. And then I kind of got it more into, like I mentioned earlier, like, you're trying to do all of these things. You're trying to eat clean, you're trying to exercise. And then the other big one is being mindful, like, cause stress. So then when you first read that with MS, you're going, well, what if I do get stressed? You start stressing about stressing.
Yeah. And
it's so easy to just spiral. It's so easy to go down that rabbit hole. So I started thinking just, I'm doing this for me. I'm doing this so I don't have to question, oh, is this MS? So when those thoughts and those fears would come up, I would immediately go, no, that's not MS. That's not, it was a lot of denial when I was first trying to figuring out, like, combating the fear. And then now I'm just like, well, I'm doing everything I can. I'm in control, sort of.
Now, do you find that for me personally, it's reminding myself of those potentially negative outcomes that sometimes keeps me going, so I'm not taking things for granted.
Yeah. I think the one of the big reminders now is just like, well, do I want to be able to do it?
Right.
Like, okay, in my mind, or, I'm not wanting to do this. I'm not wanting to go work out or go for a run,
Yep.
At 9 o'clock at night, because I wasn't able to all day. And we finally just got, our daughter down. But then I go like, oh, do I want to have the option to do it? Do I want to be able to do it? Or do I not do it and then not be able to do it at all?
Yep.
Not be able to exercise at all. So yeah, it's a big one. And I find being mindful too helps, like just reminding myself like, well, I'm here because of what I've been doing.
So important. So important. I mean, there was a moment I had, it was been 2 years ago at my son's, I think it was his 14th birthday party. And we were all playing basketball. We rented a gym and I was standing in the middle of the court. We were all playing and I almost started to cry because I thought, this is what I wanted. I wanted my body to be able to do this. And nobody in the room understood.
Yeah.
But for me, that moment was like, you got here, Matt. You did it. And you can play ball with your son and you can do this. But like, man, when I was younger, you wondered, am I going to get there?
Yeah.
Like, am I going to be able to walk up the stairs? I mean, these are real questions that you ask.
Yeah, that's very cool.
And I think for when you're living it, you got to have those mini wins. You got to stop and remind yourself, you got here. You did it. Now, do you do that for yourself? Do you have times where you like really just kind of celebrate that little thing?
Yeah. So like, it's like hitting a checkpoint, like the race isn't over. We're on the finish line.
Yeah.
But you've hit the checkpoint. I think so. Yeah. Like whenever there's a big life event, I think I have the same feeling where you know, the birth of our child was a big one where I'm like, I was there and I was able to support Casey the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, no breaks, no fatigue, no, you know, I was there. I was able to be hands on the entire time, and I think that was, you know, other than the win of having a child, that was the other big win for me. Was like, I think, like you said, like just recognizing when you have reached a big milestone in your life or something that you were worried about in the past, like recognizing and using that as empowerment to move forward. To where I'm like, hey, you know what? Like what you're doing and what those thoughts, and like every time you were scared about that situation, and then, you know, practice being mindful and like, you know, really what was positive about that situation, it helped and it got you here. And now you've reached what you've pictured.
Right.
So I think I think that's generally when I pat myself on the back.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't. I'm terrible for that. Do you find that's hard?
I do. I find I have to, I try to do things to remind myself, like something small. I'll almost always try to take the stairs because I can.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And I'll remind myself, you can do this.
Yeah.
Right. It's something small, but I try to do that.
Yeah.
And then I really do try to take those little things of mobility and celebrate them. As I've gotten older, it helps to keep me on point.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk about your cousin.
Okay.
What if you don't mind sharing?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Same disease, different choices, different outcomes.
Different choices. Same disease. Relapsing, remitting.
Yeah. Different
choices. Lifestyle didn't make the lifestyle changes.
Mm-hmm.
So very similar lifestyle to mine. Continued smoking, and then she did pass away.
Really sorry to hear that.
3 years ago. Yeah. It was a big one. I think that was a big like eye opener. To where it like, you know, you're given a stark contrast right in front of your face of like, here's what would have happened if you chose that path, and here's what's happening because you chose this path. So to have that sort of like, it's terrible and it's awful, and I feel really sorry that it couldn't be different. But at the same time, like I feel grateful that for the, the stark reminder. It's another memory or another thought to grab onto when you're really struggling.
Mm-hmm.
To be able to go like, well, you kind of have firsthand proof, firsthand experience. So why are you not staying on this track? Why wouldn't you stay on the track? Why wouldn't you just go out and do this small thing? Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was impactful. Definitely, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, was it challenging? Did you try your best to communicate the information? And for me, I've been through this journey too, in many ways different. What I've also learned is you just can't convince anyone to take a certain path. They have to follow their own journey.
Yeah, you can't. There's 1,000 sayings for it, but lead a horse to water. It was early on in my diagnosis too, and families are estranged, that sort of thing. So there was no real opportunity. Also, that happened very fast. Happened really fast. Like she had it for years. For 15 years at that point, since I was about 10. And yeah, we were just estranged, and I was very new to it, and I didn't have the opportunity.
Now you're 5 years in. You look great, Jake. You look like you're fit. I tell people I can look at someone right away and know if they're on the program. And when you walked in, I'm like, he's on it. I can just tell you've got the energy, you've got the vibrance. How far do you want to take this? Like you're now speaking out publicly. You're sharing your story. Why are you doing this? Well, what's the goal here?
My goal is, if there's someone out there that has MS, the fear that you're living with day to day. don't be scared of the program. Yeah, the program's hard, and there's going to be times where you're uncertain, and there's going to be its own challenges. But to be able to take control, and it's going to be hard, it's so worth it. And I think the biggest part for me too is, if there's someone who's thinking about doing it, and I'm one to be really hard on myself, you have to give yourself the grace to be able to do it and to be able to make mistakes and not be perfect. That's the other thing when you're first starting, because like, no matter like what lifestyle you led before, this is going to be a drastic change. The details of the diet, when you go in like gluten-free, dairy-free, it's hard to find things that are easy to eat. A lot of the time you're going to be cooking yourself, it's going to change a lot of things. And I think just giving yourself the grace and the opportunity to do the program. And if I can do it, I don't want to say anyone can do it, but if I can do it, there's hope.
Right. And I always say in this life, you've got to do hard things so life gets easy.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. You're an inspiration to me, definitely to the MS community, and I'm sure for anyone who's trying to overcome health challenges. If you want more on the nutritional strategies that Jake is using to control his multiple sclerosis, check out mshope.com.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for joining us. Hope and Health is made possible through generous donations. To learn more or support the show, visit mshope.com, where you'll find free science-based resources.